My brother impregnate my fiancée before our wedding. My family asked for forgiveness, but I cut ties and started over somewhere far away. This is going to be a long story, and yes, it's just as crazy as it sounds. I'll try my best to be clear, but there's a lot to unpack. I honestly don't care whether anyone believes me or not, it's so unreal that I just need to let it out. Also, I won't sugarcoat a single thing, but I'll avoid mentioning any personal details that could reveal who I am to anyone unfamiliar with this situation. I'm 32 years old. Until a few months ago, I was engaged to my girlfriend of 5 years. Let's call her Sarah. My younger brother, Mike, is 29 and has always been the golden child in our family. To understand the depth of this betrayal and why it shattered me so much, you need to know a little about our family history and how things reached this point. Growing up, Mike could never do any wrong in our parents' eyes, while I was constantly scolded and punished for the smallest things. This wasn't just your typical sibling rivalry or light favoritism, it was blatant and extreme. Mike would break something and I'd be blamed. He'd start a fight and I'd get grounded. If we both brought home straight A's, he'd be rewarded with a new video game console, while I got a pat on the back and a warning to keep it up. Our parents, Tom and Linda, always had an excuse ready. Mike's younger, he needs more attention. Or, you're the older one, you should know better. Or my favorite, Mike's just more sensitive, we need to be gentle with him. Years of this twisted double standard and gaslighting made me feel worthless and hated in the only home I had. As we got older, the favoritism became even more obvious. When I got into a good college on a partial scholarship, my parents barely acknowledged it. But when Mike chose to attend a community college, they threw him a huge celebration and even bought him a car for commuting. Meanwhile, I had been biking 5 miles back and forth to a part-time job for years. I moved out as soon as I could to escape that toxic household. I paid for college myself, working 2 jobs and taking out loans. Mike, on the other hand, dropped out after 1 semester, claiming school wasn't for him. And what did our parents do? They applauded him, telling everyone how proud they were that he was being true to himself and not conforming to society's pressure. They even funded a series of failed businesses he launched over the next few years. No matter how far I distanced myself, they always found a way to drag me back. Holiday dinners were especially painful, a mess of passive-aggressive jabs and clear comparisons. Oh, you're still in that entry-level position? Well, Mike is thinking of starting another business. He's really driven. Never mind that I was building a stable career while Mike burned through our parents' retirement funds. Despite all this, I still tried to maintain some kind of relationship with Mike. He was my brother, after all. But it was always one-sided. I'd reach out, try to connect, and he'd either ignore me or turn it into a competition. If I got promoted, he suddenly had a big opportunity coming up. If I started dating someone, he'd announce that he was in a serious relationship. I met Sarah while trying to reconnect with Mike. She was a friend of one of his many short-term girlfriends, and we instantly clicked. Sarah was everything I ever wanted in a partner: smart, funny, kind, and incredibly beautiful. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt seen, appreciated, loved. Of course, my parents weren't thrilled. They made backhanded comments about how Sarah was out of my league and questioned what she could possibly see in me. Mike, on the other hand, suddenly showed a strong interest in my life. He was always asking questions about Sarah, curious about every detail. At the time, I was just glad. He seemed to be taking an interest in anything I cared about. Looking back now, I should have seen the warning signs. After a year of dating, Sarah and I moved in together. It was wonderful. We both had steady careers, we traveled, and we dreamed about the future. For once, I felt like I could finally build the life I'd always wanted: a meaningful career, a loving partner, and maybe even a family someday. I proposed to Sarah on our 4th anniversary. It wasn't some extravagant event, just a quiet dinner at home, with a heartfelt speech. When she said yes, I was over the moon. We decided on a long engagement to give ourselves time to plan and save up for the wedding. We weren't in any rush. We had our whole lives ahead of us. Or so I thought. When we told my family about the engagement, the responses were mixed. My mom forced a smile and said, "Oh, how nice," in a tone that said the opposite. My dad just muttered, "Good luck with that," and turned back to watching TV. But Mike, his reaction was the most unsettling. He congratulated us, but there was something in his smile, almost predatory. I brushed it off, assuming I was just being paranoid. The year that followed was stressful. Between work and wedding planning, Sarah and I barely had time for each other. We were both working overtime to save for the wedding and a house down payment. I figured it was just a phase. Every couple has ups and downs, right? But now I realized the signs were there. Sarah became distant, always glued to her phone, smiling at messages she'd brush off as work stuff. She went out with friends more often, coming home late, smelling like wine and cologne. Still, I trusted her completely. The thought that she could be cheating never even crossed my mind, let alone cheating with my own brother. Around a few months ago, Sarah started acting more and more off. She was moody, easily annoyed, and often nauseous. I got hopeful. Maybe she was pregnant. We hadn't been trying, but we had talked about having kids someday. I began making plans, thinking about nursery colors and baby names. Then, one night, she sat me down, tears brimming in her eyes, and dropped a bomb. She was pregnant, but the baby wasn't mine. I was stunned. We hadn't been intimate for a while because of our hectic schedules, but cheating? That never crossed my mind. When I asked who the father was, she broke down, whispering through sobs. "It's Mike." My entire world shattered in an instant. Everything I believed in, everything I had built my life around, crumbled. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I felt was a crushing weight of betrayal and loss. Sarah tried to explain, her words rushing out in between sobs. Apparently, it all started during our engagement party. Mike had pulled her aside and told her she was making a mistake by marrying me. He preyed on her insecurities, saying she could do better, that he could give her everything I couldn't. It wasn't a one-time thing. They'd been having an affair for months. That night, I kicked Sarah out. I couldn't stand to look at her, to share the same space with the woman who had deceived me so completely. She begged for forgiveness, saying it was a mistake and she still loved me. But all I could think about was how many times she had lied to my face and been with my brother while wearing the ring I gave her. After Sarah left, I called Mike. I don't remember exactly what I said. It was all a haze of rage and heartbreak. At first, he acted like it was no big deal, just a drunken mistake with no real meaning. But when I pressed him, he got defensive. "Maybe if you'd been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me," he said. I saw red. I jumped in my car and drove to his apartment, ready to do something I'd regret. I didn't even know what I planned to do. But when I got there, our parents were already inside. Mike had called them first, feeding them some garbage story about Sarah seducing him and how sorry he was. And they believed him. They always do. My mom immediately started lecturing me about forgiveness and family, while my dad stood there, arms crossed, disappointed in me, not in Mike. I tried to explain what had actually happened, but they wouldn't hear it. They kept telling me to forgive Mike and support Sarah through the pregnancy because, of course, family comes first. That's when I lost it. Years of resentment and suppressed anger came flooding out. I told them exactly how I felt, how they always put Mike above me, how they never had my back, never once stood up for me. I looked at Mike and told him he was no longer my brother, he was dead to me. Then I turned to my parents and said they could have the son they always wanted because they didn't have me anymore. I stormed out, ignoring their cries and pleas. I drove for hours, no destination in mind, just the desperate need to get away from it all. When I finally got back home, I found dozens of missed calls and messages. Sarah was begging for another chance. Mike's messages swung wildly between fake apologies and accusations. But most of them were from my parents, demanding I grow up and make amends. I ignored them. I barely ate, barely slept. I called off work and used up all my vacation days. I couldn't face anyone. Couldn't bear to explain what happened. I just sat there, replaying every moment of my relationship with Sarah, every memory of my brother, trying to find where I went wrong. It's been 3 months. I've moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, and started therapy to process all of this. But my family won't stop. Even though I've cut them off, they still find ways to force their way into my life. They show up at my office trying to ambush me, pushing for reconciliation. My mom cornered me in the parking lot, wailing that I'm tearing the family apart. My dad left voicemail after voicemail telling me to man up and forgive Mike. Mike himself keeps trying to talk to me, but I've managed to avoid him every time. Now they're sending flying monkeys, relatives I haven't spoken to in years, all reaching out to guilt trip me. Aunts, uncles, cousins suddenly care about family unity and want me to let bygones be bygones. It's like they're living in some twisted alternate reality where Mike and Sarah just made a tiny mistake, not one that destroyed my life. Yesterday, I got a message from Sarah. She's keeping the baby. She and Mike are planning to co-parent. And guess what? My parents are thrilled, excited to become grandparents. They've completely forgotten how cruel they used to be to Sarah when she was with me. The letter was full of apologies and explanations, how she and Mike found real love through this horrible situation. And the audacity, she even said she hopes we can all be friends someday for the baby's sake. I'm at my breaking point. Part of me wants to cut all ties completely, move to a new state, start over with a new name, a clean slate, a new life far away from this nightmare. But another part of me is furious, wants to stay and make them see just how twisted and wrong this whole thing is. I don't know what to do. This betrayal has consumed every part of my life. I can't be alone with my thoughts. I haven't even thought about dating again. The idea of trusting someone makes me feel sick. I've lost friends too, friends who think I should be the bigger person and reunite with my family. Like I'm the villain for not wanting to play happy family with the people who hurt me most. The idea of Sarah and Mike raising a child together, a child that should have been mine, it's like a knife twisting in my chest. I know the baby's innocent. It's not their fault their parents are lying, cheating garbage. But I can't feel good about their existence. Now my parents are talking about how I should be involved in the baby's life, how I'll be an uncle. The very thought makes me sick. How am I supposed to look at that child and not see the living symbol of my brother's betrayal? So, Reddit, am I the idiot for refusing to forgive my brother and ex-fiancé? Am I wrong for wanting to cut ties with my family over this? Any advice on how to move forward would be deeply appreciated, as I now feel like I'm drowning in a sea of betrayal and manipulation. I apologize for the long post. If you've made it this far, I truly appreciate it. Writing everything down has been oddly therapeutic. I'm not sure what I expected to gain from sharing this. Validation, guidance, or maybe just the chance to scream into the void and have someone, anyone, hear me. Edit. Holy hell, this blew up overnight. Thank you all for your support and advice. I'm shocked by the response, and it'll take me some time to get through all the comments. Still, I wanted to answer a few frequently asked questions. 1. Yes, I've spoken with a lawyer about getting a restraining order against my family. The process is underway. 2. I have no plans to have contact with the baby. While I know it's not the child's fault, I cannot involve myself without risking my sanity. 3. For those asking about my job, HR is aware of everything and has been incredibly supportive. They've strengthened security at the entrance and even offered to let me work from home more frequently. I'm truly grateful for their understanding. 4. Many have asked whether I've thought about relocating to another city or state. It's definitely on my mind. My company has branches in several locations, so a transfer could be doable. I'm weighing the pros and cons. 5. To those suggesting a DNA test, Sarah has admitted to the affair and the timeline matches. I have no reason to believe the baby isn't Mike's. Even if there was a doubt, I don't think I could ever look at that child without being reminded of everything. 6. I'm overwhelmed by how many people have experienced something similar. It's heartbreaking to know betrayal like this is so common, but also oddly comforting to realize I'm not alone. Thank you for sharing your stories. 7. To the person who asked if I'd considered suing Mike for alienation of affection, I checked, but that isn't a recognized legal claim in my state. Even if it were, I don't think I have the emotional bandwidth for a court battle right now. 8. Several people pointed out that Mike's behavior sounds narcissistic. I've been reading about narcissistic personality disorder, and honestly, a lot of it lines up. It's helped me make sense of some of his actions, though it doesn't excuse them. 9. As for Sarah's family, they're just as shocked and horrified as anyone might expect. They've cut off contact with her and reached out to express their support for me. It's a small comfort, but one I deeply appreciate. 10. Someone asked if I've thought about having kids someday. Honestly, this entire ordeal has made me question whether I want a family at all. But I'm trying not to make any big life decisions while I'm still processing everything. I'll keep you posted if anything major happens. For now, I'm focused on healing and moving forward. Thank you again, Reddit. You've helped more than you know. Your advice and encouragement have given me a lot to think about and have truly been a lifeline during this nightmare. I may not be able to respond to every comment, but I'm reading all of them and they're making me feel less alone. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and it's been a wild ride. First off, thank you all for your incredible support and thoughtful advice. I never imagined my post would get this kind of attention. Reading your responses has been both heartbreaking and strangely comforting. It's disturbing how common this kind of betrayal is. The last few weeks have been extremely difficult. Remember how I mentioned filing for a restraining order? That turned into a massive ordeal. My lawyer submitted the documents, and we got a hearing scheduled. I thought it'd be straightforward with all the evidence and ongoing harassment, but I was wrong. My parents showed up at court with their own high-powered lawyer, some guy in a designer suit who probably charges more per hour than I make in a week. They tried to paint me as the unstable one, claiming I was tearing the family apart over a simple misunderstanding, as if Mike just tripped and landed in my fiancé. Thankfully, the judge didn't buy it. She granted the restraining order against both Mike and my parents. That only came after my mom started sobbing in court and my dad stared at me like I'd just committed murder. But Mike's expression, if looks could kill, I'd be 6 feet under. As we left the courthouse, Mike tried to confront me. My lawyer immediately stepped in and reminded him about the restraining order. Mike just sneered and said, "This isn't over. You can't hide behind a piece of paper forever." I won't lie, his words shook me. But at least I now have some legal protection. The job situation has been another complete nightmare. Remember when I mentioned my family had started showing up at my workplace? Well, that reached a boiling point last week. I was in a meeting with a client when my assistant interrupted, informing me that my mother was in the lobby causing a disturbance. Apparently, she had brought a photo album and was trying to show my coworkers baby pictures of Mike and me, going on and on about how close her boys used to be. I excused myself from the meeting and went downstairs, only to find my mother surrounded by a group of visibly uncomfortable coworkers. She was in the middle of recounting some bizarre story about how Mike and I used to bathe together as toddlers. When she saw me, she rushed over, talking about a baby shower, but I cut her off immediately. I told her to leave right away or I would call the police and have her arrested for trespassing and violating the restraining order. The look on her face was as if I had slapped her, but after everything they'd put me through, I couldn't even bring myself to care. Security escorted her out, and I spent the next hour doing damage control with HR and my colleagues. Fortunately, most were understanding, though I could tell a few were silently questioning the kind of drama I was dragging into the office. But it was the fight with Mike that truly threw everything off track. Last Saturday, I was at the gym trying to burn off some frustration on the punching bag. I was so focused I didn't realize someone had approached me until I heard his voice. I turned, and there was Mike, smirking like he hadn't just broken a restraining order. He began speaking loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. I told him to leave immediately or I'd call the police, but he just laughed and said he'd tell them I had threatened both him and Sarah. That's when I snapped. I swung at him, my fist landing square on his jaw. He staggered back, then lunged at me. We ended up on the floor, throwing punches like we were kids again, except this time, there were no parents around to pull us apart, no one telling me to be the bigger person and let Mike win. I landed a few solid hits before the gym staff jumped in and broke it up. Mike's nose was bleeding, and I could feel my own eye starting to swell shut. We were both yelling, trying to break free and go at it again. The gym manager threatened to call the cops, which finally snapped me out of it. I grabbed my things and left. I was driving home, still shaking from the adrenaline, when I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Sarah. She was screaming at me, saying I had broken Mike's nose and he might need surgery. I couldn't help but laugh. The idea that she was angry with me after everything they'd done was too ridiculous to take seriously. I sarcastically apologized for upsetting her little boyfriend, the same guy she'd been cheating on me with for months. She started sobbing, going on about how anxious she was, how the baby could sense her stress, and how I was being selfish. I hung up and blocked her number. The fallout from the fight was intense. News spread like wildfire through our social circle. My phone blew up with messages, some supportive, others condemning me for assaulting my poor, defenseless brother. Sarah's parents reached out again, expressing their continued support for me and their deep disappointment in their daughter. It wasn't much, but at this point, I'll take any comfort I can get. Still, the restraining order no longer feels like enough. Mike has clearly shown he's willing to ignore it, and I'm genuinely worried about what he might do next. The legal consequences have been a nightmare. The day after the gym incident, my lawyer called. Mike had filed an assault charge against me. I explained everything, how he violated the restraining order and provoked me. But my lawyer sighed and said this would still be an uphill battle, especially since I threw the first punch. We're filing our own charges against Mike for breaking the restraining order. My lawyer thinks that will help our case, but there's no guarantee. I had to give a police statement, show the bruises on my face and knuckles, and explain why I had to physically defend myself against my own brother. It was humiliating. Both Mike and I have been permanently banned from the gym. I get it, but it's frustrating. Working out there was one of the few healthy outlets I had for stress. My cousin Amy, who has always had my back, called recently. She's been taking a lot of heat from the family for siding with me, but refuses to back down. She told me my parents have been telling everyone that I'm having a mental breakdown. They're claiming Sarah and Mike only got together after Sarah and I broke up, and that I'm just jealous and can't move on. Amy says most of the family isn't buying it. But a few people are. It's exhausting to know they're spreading lies while I'm just trying to heal. Things at work have been tense, to say the least. After my mother's outburst in the lobby and the viral fight with Mike on local social media, I can feel my coworkers walking on eggshells around me. My manager called me into his office earlier this week. He told me he values me and understands I'm going through a lot, but then he dropped the bomb. I should take a leave of absence until things settle down. He suggested calling it a paid personal sabbatical. I wanted to argue, to say work was the only thing holding me together, but I could tell the decision had already been made. So I agreed, thanked him for the support, and started packing up my office. As I was leaving, I overheard two coworkers whispering about how my brother got my fiancée pregnant. I slammed my office door harder than necessary on the way out, taking a tiny bit of satisfaction in making them jump. I'd be lying if I said none of this is getting to me. Lately, I've been going on long drives at night just to escape my apartment. Sometimes I find myself parked outside my old place, the one I shared with Sarah, just sitting there, wondering how everything in my life got so twisted. In the middle of all this chaos, support came from an unexpected source, Sarah's younger sister, Emma. Emma reached out to me on social media, apologizing for her sister's actions and offering her support. At first, I was suspicious. What if this was just another setup? But after talking with her, I realized she was just as repulsed by Sarah's behavior as I was. She's been filling me in on what's been going on in Sarah and Mike's lives. Apparently, they've moved in together and are living like they didn't just ruin multiple lives to be with each other. According to Emma, Sarah has been trying to paint herself as the victim, sobbing to anyone who'll listen about how she never meant to hurt anyone and how she and Mike are destined soulmates who found each other against all odds. It turns my stomach, but I'm grateful Emma keeps me informed, because in the end, knowledge is power, even when it's the kind of knowledge I wish I never had. Dealing with social media has been a complete nightmare. I've always kept a low profile, but now I've been thrown into an unwanted spotlight. Someone, probably one of Mike's buddies, posted about our family drama on a local Facebook group. They didn't include our names, but the details were specific enough that anyone who knows us could easily connect the dots. The comment section turned into a war zone. Some people defended me, saying Mike got what he deserved. Others called me unhinged and claimed I should be locked up. One night, after downing too many beers, I stupidly decided to read through the comments. Big mistake. I got so angry I chucked my phone across the room, smashing the screen. After that, I shut down most of my social media accounts. I just couldn't handle the endless notifications and nosy messages from people I haven't spoken to in years, suddenly hungry for gossip about my life. After all that's happened, I've come to realize I can't stay in this city anymore. There are just too many reminders, too many chances I might bump into Sarah, Mike, or even my own parents. I've started exploring internal transfers, and there's a solid opportunity in our Seattle office. It's not perfect. I've never been a fan of constant rain, but honestly, I'd relocate to the moon if it meant escaping this chaos. I haven't fully decided yet, but the thought of starting over in a new place is becoming more and more appealing. A new city, a new apartment, a new life. One where I'm not known as the guy whose brother betrayed him. My parents have been eerily quiet since the restraining order took effect. I'm just waiting for their next move, for them to find another way to barge into my life. Meanwhile, Sarah is proudly broadcasting her pregnancy everywhere. Emma tells me she's been flooding social media with updates, ultrasounds, belly pictures, gushing about how blessed she and Mike are and how thrilled they are to start a family. Each update feels like a fresh stab, reopening wounds just when I think I'm starting to heal. So that's where things are now. Just 2 weeks ago, I didn't think life could get any worse, and yet here I am. I'm still angry, still hurting, but above all, I'm just exhausted. Tired of explaining myself over and over. So, Reddit. I guess this isn't really an update. Maybe it's more like a scream into the void. I don't even know what I'm looking for anymore. Advice, sympathy, or maybe a time machine so I could go back and never let Sarah meet my brother. Whatever the future holds, I'll try to keep you all in the loop. Your support has meant more to me than you'll ever know. It's comforting to be reminded that good people still exist, even when everything around you feels like betrayal and lies. Hey Reddit, it's been a week since my last post, and I think this will be my final update in this whole mess. First off, I want to thank everyone for the advice and support you've given me along the way. Your words were a lifeline during some of the darkest moments of my life. So, where to begin? A lot has changed in just 7 days, and I'm still trying to process it all. I suppose I'll start with the biggest development. I'm relocating. Yep, I took the leap and accepted the transfer to our Seattle office. It wasn't an easy choice, but after everything, I knew I needed a clean break and a new beginning. That decision came after one especially hard day last week. I had just gotten back from yet another meeting with my attorney about Mike's assault accusations when I noticed a letter in my mailbox. It was from Sarah. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was an ultrasound image and a handwritten note talking about how thrilled she and Mike are about the baby. She said she hoped I could eventually be happy for them and that the baby would love having its uncle in its life. I saw red. Before I even knew what I was doing, I grabbed my phone, unblocked Sarah, and called her. She answered on the second ring, and I just let loose. I told her exactly what I thought of her, of Mike, and of their picture-perfect family. I made it clear she was delusional if she thought I'd have anything to do with that child. I told her, Mike, and the baby could all go to hell. It wasn't my proudest moment, but it felt like the release I'd been needing for months. That was when I knew I couldn't stay in this city another minute. That same night, I called my boss and told him I was ready to move to Seattle. To my surprise, he sounded relieved. I think he was worried that all this drama was becoming a liability for the company. He promised to fast-track the transfer paperwork. By the next morning, it was official. I had 2 weeks to pack up and move across the country. Word spread quickly among my family and friends. Unsurprisingly, my parents were furious. They showed up at my place unannounced, again breaking the restraining order just to try and talk me out of leaving. My mother cried, accusing me of abandoning the family, while my father raged about how selfish and immature I was being. I didn't argue. I just picked up the phone, called the police, and had them escorted out for violating the order. As they were being taken away, my mom screamed that I'd regret this, that family was everything and I was throwing it all away. I shut the door and went right back to packing. Mike reacted differently. He didn't attempt to reach out to me directly, most likely due to the ongoing legal issues. However, he did post a lengthy message on social media, talking about how some people just can't stand to see others happy, and how he and Sarah were rising above the negativity to focus on their new family. It was very clearly aimed at me, painting himself as the victim. I'll admit, it hurt to see how many people liked and commented in support of him. But I reminded myself that their opinions don't matter because they don't actually know the truth. Sarah's response, though, was the most surprising. After our phone call, she apparently reached out to her sister Emma, who, as you might remember, had been updating me on Sarah and Mike's situation. It seems what I said hit harder than I expected. Emma told me Sarah broke down, admitting she now realizes how awful what she and Mike did was, and she's terrified of what the future might hold. My cousin Amy, bless her, offered to help me pack. She also shared even more details about what's been happening with the rest of the family. Amy told me that my aunt, my mother's sister, got into a heated fight with my mom. She accused my mother of always putting Mike first and pushing me to the side. My aunt told her this was the result of years of favoritism, and that now my parents were finally facing the consequences. Honestly, it's a relief to know someone is finally standing up to them and calling them out for how they've treated me. My lawyer has assured me that the move won't affect the ongoing legal proceedings. The case is still pending. We're pursuing charges against Mike for violating the restraining order and also handling the assault claims he made against me. According to my lawyer, the judge is likely to see through Mike's defense, especially since he has repeatedly broken the restraining order. The fact that I'm relocating across the country should also make it clear that I'm no threat to Mike, which could help in getting the charges dismissed. I'm not sure if I'll be posting any more updates after this. Part of moving on is leaving the past behind. And while this community has been incredibly helpful to me, I think it's time I stop reliving the story. I need to focus on building a new life rather than clinging to the pain of the old one. So, I think this will be my final update. Wish me luck, Reddit. I've got an entirely new life waiting for me in Seattle, and I fully intend to make the most of it.